Welcome back to another episode of Preacher in the Hat. We've got the usual suspects here with us today. I am Derek. Across from me is my brother Eric, my father Steve, and behind the camera, finally, for the first time on a hot mic, if he so chooses.
Yes, sir. Producer.
All right.
That is the most dangerous decision we've ever made.
Yes.
We'll see if it
So
pays
this
off.
is the last one we ever do. You guys will know why. Something happened. No, but it's. I hope you are listening or watching this curled up by a fire in the middle of December under a blanket because it is boiling hot right now, and mentally I am in that spot. If you've ever been to the zoo or like an aquarium that has a butterfly room, that's what downstairs feels like right now.
A butterfly
Humidity
room?
wise.
Okay,
It is-
here we go.
I'm dying down here. Chris, is it sweat?
I'm not
hot.
feeling it. I'm
The
not
air is a
feeling
little
it.
thick.
Dad's
The air-
wearing a jacket.
He's
Hey,
nice.
he's all right. I don't
That's
know what's
fine.
happening to me.
That's fine.
This is bad news.
You do you.
So,
This is not me.
Hormones.
We'll be talking about hell tonight.
yep, it's already bad to see.
Oh yeah, I told you it was the most dangerous decision we ever made.
So yeah, but
You and I'm just noticing for those who are for those who are
this at all.
video inclined.
Chris, can you go back and forth?
Just
You
yeah,
might not even be able to
just-
tell if you're going back and forth. That's the problem.
So black hats, blue shirts,
Oh, yeah.
and jeans.
Yeah, look at here.
And not just people say, oh, you're both wearing a blue shirt.
Yeah.
Like, no, we're actually like wearing the same shade of blue.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Well, that's gonna be stuck
know.
on my mind all night.
Dad, you want to tell us how you're doing this jacket tonight? Because it's about 81 down here.
I will say this. When I was your age, I wouldn't have had a jacket on. This jacket stuff is almost all the time, all year round for me now. And it's not just a fashion statement or an unfashioned statement, as the case may be, a lack of fashion statement. It's when I go in and out of rooms and I go in and outside and inside, nowadays I need a jacket to help me maintain, regulate. Yeah,
Yeah.
really. It's kind of weird. So I don't know. I'm,
I work
I'm
with a guy-
surprised about it as you are.
I work
sometimes
with a guy
because
who
That's the way it feels. I mean, like I can feel. I know what you're saying about it being a little warmer than normal, but I think if I had my jacket off, I'd be a little more uncomfortable.
okay. I work with a guy who doesn't take a jacket off.
Yeah.
Like
Even during the summer?
Oh yeah. I walked past him when I was leaving the office today,
Yeah.
and he was coming. He had gone out to his car. He was coming back in, and he had a zip up hoodie on.
I mean, in the middle of summer,
Walking
No
into-
way, man.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
as hot
Is
as it
y'all's
was
parking lot covered?
this
Nope.
summer, hot as it been this summer, I go to, I go into prison. I get out of the car. In the car, I've got a jacket on. I get out of the car, walk into the prison, got my jacket on. But then I get in there, and then in the back, most of the prison is not air conditioned, but the rooms that I go into pretty much are, and in the classrooms. And if I didn't have this jacket on, I would freeze in
Well,
there.
what are those? Are like ice cold? Are they like
They're colder than
window
normal.
unit cold? Like where it's just always
Kind of
blowing?
window unit, although
Yeah.
they don't have window units, but it is
Yeah.
it's,
Kinda
it's
feels
pretty
like
chilly.
it
But
stays
but the
cold,
same
yeah.
thing's true in restaurants. If I go in and out of buildings, a lot of people have their temperatures set
There
at
are
a lot
s-
lower level than what I do.
Yeah.
There are some like that. Yeah.
There's
So
there's a restaurant that I go to occasionally in Bessemer, not often, when I'm down there working, and it is. I always wish I had a jacket.
Yeah.
in
Really?
there.
Yeah.
so that's kind of me. I just don't like carrying my jacket around. I usually just except on my shoulder.
Just wear it.
Wear that sucker, you know.
So, anyways, it's hot here. I don't know what time of year you're listening to this. I hope it's a crisp fall morning or something
Yeah.
like that. Oh, that sounds so good.
Crisp fall morning. We got a little way. We're recording this in the
July.
mid late July, and
A lot of wishful thinking.
we're wishful thinking for sure. So, occasionally when we get together to record an episode, there has not been a lot of chatter about a particular one. Something may pop up, kind of on the not last minute, but sometimes last minute, and it's like, oh yeah, that's one we got to do. Others we have, we get planned out way in advance, especially like you see that when we have guests and stuff like that. But this is one that what we wanted to talk about today came up really last minute because it was actually based off of a conversation that started today.
On text.
This morning, yeah, over text. And I eventually texted you guys, and I was like, hey, y'all's conversation gave me a great idea for what we should talk about for, our podcast episode tonight. All four of us here in the room, and of course the three on camera, you for sure would know by now if you've listened to most of our episodes that we have all been parents or are parents. Well, we all are currently parents, and obviously
Different stages.
And this is our dad. So there's been some of that, in the room. Not only are all of us parents, but you are one of our parents. So we were talking about a story from high school for me and Derek. And Derek, I wonder if you would share what we talked about this morning over text.
Yeah, so without, really sharing kind of what brought it to the forefront, we somehow landed on the back in ninth grade, I guess, or before middle of ninth grade. We had played baseball growing up, through park leagues and all of that stuff, which were pretty popular in the areas that we grew up in. And we were in some, good leagues, some fun leagues like that. We had good experiences and stuff like that. So I was partial to that scene, if you will, like just because I was comfortable with it. And Dad wanted us to try out for the school team in high school, so ninth grade.
Ninth grade, coming in.
We never did in middle school. The coaches at that point kind of had like a not so great rep. It was very like they played favorites and all that stuff or whatever. Yeah. And I think
I forgot about that.
Yeah. So we were Eric and I were also like we hit our growth spurts after most like 90% of everybody else. Through middle school we were always very little and all that stuff too. So probably wouldn't have made the team at any rate in middle school.
Yeah.
So ninth grade came around and Dad, it was time to spring was coming and he wanted us to try out for baseball, and I was like, nah, I want to just keep playing the rec league that we did down. We lived real close to the field, and I knew that there were some people on that team, whatever, that I wasn't like too crazy about being around and all that stuff, whatever. And so, but Dad was very adamant, hey, you guys should give this a shot. So I was worried I wasn't really going to enjoy it, but when you look back on it, and we made that team, and the whatever 9th, 10th, all the way through high school played baseball. For me, looking back now, that baseball was something about high school that I can say like, man, I really enjoyed that. I liked being with the guys that were on the team for the most part. Particularly in our last
14 of you that went through 9th through 12th grade in your class.
Something like that.
I don't think it ended up being. I think when we graduated, I think it was something like 10 to 12.
There's quite a few guys in
it was
your
a lot.
class.
It was a lot.
Yeah, it really was.
And some guys who were there
who
were with us all 4 years.
It also, one of the class before us was extremely small, like 3 or 4
so they took a lot from our
I
grade.
got you.
Yeah,
I got
that's
you.
right.
Got you.
So, but yeah, that was one of those things you kind of look back on, and you're like, Dad might have heard the argument that I made about, that we made about, not really wanting to be around those people that were, a little older than us or whatever. But you could, the ability that you have as someone with more life experiences to say, it might not be the most fun you've ever had when you first get started, but it's not about what, what will happen after that, what can happen after that, can make it worth it, and that's something that you don't really see. As you're just all you can really think about is like what's right in front of you, and be like, man, I'm not gonna like it. Right then, when it very first starts, I'm not gonna like it. But that's not your job as a parent, is to let that. You don't want your kid to be deterred by, this very first short part at the front I'm not going to like, but the rest you will.
You know, the thing that popped into my head was we had the exact same thing happen 2 years prior to ninth grade. So Derek and I in third grade through, was it third grade? Yeah, third grade through fifth grade, played the piano and
that's right.
hated it. Grew to hate it, I guess maybe is probably the better way to say it. I could not stand it by the end. And so when we moved to a much smaller house in the fifth grade, or near the end of the fifth grade, the piano did not come with us, and there was much rejoicing. And so we got to quit piano at that time. Well, like a year and a half or so, something like that later, Dad comes along and he's like, you guys have to the way he said it is that you guys have to master an instrument. And the look on your face is like,
I remember that look.
We have to what?
I'll say this though about that. We had the choice that time, and I remember being excited about
of what
the choice.
instrument you could choose.
Yes. So that was coming next, because that was you have to master an instrument, and my brain is it's flashing like this and going piano, 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 and but no, that wasn't it. And Dad said, I don't care. You said I don't care what instrument. Don't care what instrument. Right. So you pick. Yeah. And so that went so much better. But like I think about if I had the choice, like piano, I thought scarred me, whatever, I was the fifth grader. And I would have just been done and never, I'm pretty sure, to pick up anything, and now 22 years later or whatever, thinking about how much would be different in my life if I didn't get that push. If Dad had not known, if Dad didn't, and Mom too, but especially, Dad was the one pushing, didn't know best at that time to be like, yeah, these guys can do that and they should do it.
I would say one thing that was a very important variable in all this was both with baseball and with music. I already knew you had demonstrated some skill. In other words,
I don't know how you saw that through piano.
But somehow musically, I knew you had skill. I know a little bit about music. Didn't know much about music, but
the Lord spoke it to you.
Yeah, it might be true, but I knew somehow you did. So it was not like, I don't really like to see parents who are challenging the kid to do something that they probably don't have any. Absolutely. And, it's kind of like watching American Idol. You remember, like, I was watching American Idol or something like that, and I'll look at them and said, where was their mom and dad? Who told them that they could sing? You know what I'm saying? So I want you to know that for me, it was not just a matter, I wanted you to do something, that nobody thought you could.
Well, you knew we would make the baseball team.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure about that.
I'm guessing you probably didn't have much.
Do you
you always have a little bit of like, man, this better work out. It's like you're never like 1,000,000% sure. It's like it's the same thing when you proposed. It's like she's gonna say yes.
You know what my biggest fear was?
I hope she says
my
yes.
biggest fear, and it was not either one. My biggest fear was that one of you might make it and the other might
mine
not.
Too.
That I knew would just nail. That would nail. I was like,
I knew that I would not want to be on the team if Derek did.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. I already knew that.
Do you remember? And I don't even know if Dad remembers this, because we had like this kind of disagreement about what we were going to do, and Dad wanted us to, try out. Do you remember Dad telling us not to tank the tryout?
Did I tell you?
No
that?
way.
Yes,
I did.
He had to tell us that. Oh.
No, he didn't. I wasn't gonna. I was never. It's like if there was one fear of like getting involved, the fear of getting involved, the greater fear was getting out there and looking like an absolute moron. Like, so I wasn't going to tank the
I
trial.
already knew it baseball. Y'all
But
had
dad
skill,
was
man.
like, I don't want y'all getting out there and not giving it your best,
Now, I'm gonna
just
say-
so you won't make the team. I was like, what?
See, sometimes I think sometimes the kids, they think they have skill and they want to try to convince the parents they do. That was always the reverse with you guys. I always had to be the one to say you have it because
Oh, I would be a bum. without some pushes.
well, but I
as
mean
a
because
kid.
I recognized skill. I knew baseball skill. Two things I'd functioned in was in baseball and music growing up. So I knew a little bit about. I knew a little bit about what it takes in both of those areas. So it wasn't like I was like, oh boy, Lord, please help them. I mean, like, okay, so your nephews, all right, your nephews playing baseball, all right. When they played baseball, they didn't enjoy it like you all did when they were little. You know what I'm saying? And their skill level was different with you. I loved cheering them on while they were playing it and so forth. But eventually they were like, I just can't do this. And number two, I don't want to. But that had never been the case with baseball with you guys. Now, with piano, I just felt like with piano, we had the wrong instrument. I felt like we had the wrong instrument. I didn't feel like it was you didn't have musical skill. I felt like you had the wrong instrument.
I don't know. Like I said, I'm glad you saw that because all I remember is whining and complaining.
Well, your sisters were your teachers in piano, remember? For the most part.
Yeah.
And they had somewhat mastered. Both of them mastered it, and so
Both of them, they can still play it
they
today,
still
yeah.
play. Yes, absolutely. And I knew they were going to be done. I mean, the way they loved you guys and the way they all loved them, I thought if you don't like doing piano lessons with them, you'll never enjoy piano lessons with anybody. So it wasn't like let's get a different teacher or let's get a little different coach. It was that was never the issue in terms of my thought processes. And I loved it that y'all. I mean, so then you chose two instruments that really you could practice together with, which was genius on y'all's part to do that. But remember, I told you that we would buy whatever instrument you needed.
Yeah.
I said we would buy the instruments, whatever you choose. We would buy the instruments so that you could master it.
I don't really remember what went into that decision.
I have no idea.
I don't remember either what happened.
So Derek, okay, so sorry. Derek selected bass guitar, and I selected drums.
That's right. Which went well together in practice.
Yeah.
As long as you have a newsboy.
I don't have any clue how I arrived at that. I don't have any recollection.
Huh. I don't remember either. Because you just told me what you wanted. You didn't tell me the process.
Had to just
Don't
be-
even remember having a conversation about it.
had to just be like the one you like the instrument you liked watching
don't
at
know.
church, or something.
I don't recall ever thinking
yeah.
that though.
I me neither. I'm sitting here trying to think about why I wanted to play the drums. I don't know.
So let's talk a little bit about, is there something like parental wisdom and parental instinct sometimes?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
I think so
Because
too.
you knew you guys. Now, it may not be true for all parents,
that's
depending
true.
on how involved and engaged and and how well you parent.
Yeah.
You and mom were. I feel like you knew us better than we knew ourselves at that time, which is not totally which is not uncommon, for good parents. So, yeah, it's like that's why I'm sitting here saying like I'm glad you saw that about piano, about it was like, oh, it's just the wrong instrument, because I did not see that, and I still don't look back and see that. It's like that's still not my memory. And so yeah, I think 100% you knew. Y'all had wisdom about that we obviously did not possess.
Well, I do remember this with piano, is when you first started, I thought your objection about it maybe would just need to be overcome with experience. You know what I'm saying? And that you soon, but I'll never forget one of you, and I think it was you, Derek. I came home one day and you were sitting at the piano with your sister, Shauna, and there were tears coming down your cheeks.
That could have been me any day in practice.
And you, yeah, it could have been either one of you. But I think, and you say, now, I don't mean like boo-hooing. I mean just like, and you looked at me with this, pleadingly, like, I just can't do this. I can't do that. I mean, and I heard it. It was funny. Well, I can feel it now. Even what that. I can tell you where you were. I walked in that living room, and there you were. You were in the piano bench with your sister, and you were trying it. And I knew you had tried it. And I said you had done this at least for a year. Was it 2 years?
No idea.
I think it was a year. And I said, okay, you have done it for a year. Remember, how it was, as you indicated a minute ago, was it was a year or two later that I actually told you had to get another instrument because I felt like you needed a break from that experience. You know what I'm saying? To kind of recover from that experience a little bit. I felt so. In other words, I didn't have to go, oh, that kid just don't want to, that kid just don't want to do it. You just put your nose to the grindstone, buddy, and you can make it work. In that moment, that would not have been wisdom for y'all because you would have hated it, and then you'd have been hating piano. Mm-hmm. Now, let me ask you a question. Has there ever been a moment since then that you ever wish you could play keyboard now?
I've thought about like,
Yeah.
I mean, I can pick around on it a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But I think maybe I have thought that a time or two.
Okay.
But I always like course correct in my mind.
Okay.
And I always think about if you hadn't put down the keys, you wouldn't have picked up the drums.
Gotcha.
And I'm like,
That's
nah,
true.
I'm good.
Yeah, because I don't see myself as like like my neighbor can play a million different instruments. Like I don't see myself as, or I say a million different. He can play
Drums,
few
guitar,
of them very
keys.
well,
Yeah,
and he can
right.
play them very well. I didn't like. I needed to dedicate some time to like one thing, and so yeah, I think if I had stayed with that, then I wouldn't have ended up.
Well, let me
bass
ask you.
and now
Let me ask you
guitar.
several questions. Number one, how long did it take after you picked your instruments for you were like, I can do this?
Oh,
I don't
mean like
really remember.
that's a good question.
I don't remember an aha moment.
It was not like this may sound crazy, but like it was even like after I was already on the worship team.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was not even probably sometime, I would guess just off the top of my head, sometime in like 10th or 11th grade, something like that.
What about baseball? Was it just after the first year?
I know where I was like, yes, was tryouts for sophomore year. Okay. Now, tryouts for us wasn't really a stressful big deal kind of thing. We expected to make the team, so it wasn't really
second time.
Yeah, but I remember at tryouts, I remember every day towards the end of 9th grade, when I would throw, my elbow hurt. Mm-hmm. Why did I not tell why did I tell no one that? I have no idea, but I like kept it to myself. My elbow hurt in 9th grade. And then I didn't throw at all, like 9th grade off season into 10th grade. And I felt like my arm in 9th grade was like kind of weak. I played third base, throwing across to first. But then coming into 10th grade, like we probably threw like maybe once or twice before tryouts. I don't even know, maybe not. And I felt like I came into 10th grade, tryouts in 10th grade, and I had a cannon. Like all of a sudden, and so I was like, oh yeah, okay. Like I feel good. Like it gave me like way more confidence. So I would say, yeah, for me, it was after 1 year and immediately into the next.
Yeah.
You're also probably like 4 inches taller.
I know. Yeah.
5 inches
Yeah.
taller.
Well, yeah. I had a huge growth spurt after 9th grade.
One of the things that for me, I wanted you to learn is I felt like that learning the skills both in baseball and showing that you could compete on that level, which I thought you had skill to, would develop confidence overall. Remember, we had some conversation about this as it related to discipline, but now today I'm thinking more along the line of discipline, but along the line of confidence. And I felt like that in music, mastering an instrument, I think it builds overall confidence that whether it's an instrument, whether it's, and also enjoyment of school. If a student does not participate in something, now that could be a club or a service project or a certain group in school or that kind of thing. I think that makes the whole experience in a group, when you feel like you're a contributing member, I think it just somehow builds your enjoyment of the whole experience in school. Because I see kids going to school and they're like, okay, I'm just here to learn something. I'm going to do that. If that's all you do, you can get tired of school pretty quick.
It honestly built like peripheral skills. Like I think especially music built peripheral skills for us. For me, I don't want to speak for Derek, although I think it's the same. In that, we got up on the worship team really quick.
Based on need.
Yeah. Not by blowing people away. But
however, your mentors, who were really highly skilled musicians, are the ones who told us that you were ready.
Yes, that's great. Anyway,
I'm serious.
I know. I remember. I know. Anyway, getting up there that quick, we were both pretty introverted, but especially like I would say maybe even more than introverted, just like timid. Probably I would have considered myself, and
kind of like me.
And yeah, right. And being
Mr. Producer,
being
like
up
me.
there every Sunday morning and all that kind of stuff it quickly took away my fear of that kind of stuff. So like the things that eventually like dissolved for me were like fear of like presenting something in front of a class didn't bother soon after like doing a lot of that didn't bother me anymore. Like speaking even like on a Sunday morning at church didn't bother me anymore. Yeah. Like and it so like all the way even up to now, like doing stuff like that, if I have to do something like that at work or or if I have to lead a meeting, it doesn't matter. I don't care if there's 2 people on the call. I don't care if there were 100 people on the on the call. It doesn't bother me. And I really think a lot of that that kind of exposure therapy, honestly, led me to being able to be okay with some of that kind of stuff that you wouldn't normally expect someone with my personality maybe to be always super comfortable with.
So Eric, on the thread today, you said a possible title for this episode would be Parents Know Best.
Yeah.
I thought about that this afternoon for a while. Do you know in our culture, that actually used to be true in our culture. It was, let me put it this way. It was more generally accepted as truth in our culture. But I thought about it. In our culture today, the exact opposite is true. Here's what I want to say to you two guys. Is had you rolled your eyes and said, Dad does not know what he's talking about. He doesn't understand us. He doesn't understand young people. He doesn't understand how to do that. Think how different this conversation could be. Because in our culture today, parents don't know best. There was an old show years ago, black and white TV show called Father Knows Best,
All right.
But I mean, like, nowadays it's parents are idiots. I mean, parents are idiots. They don't know. Now get me wrong. I've seen some parents that
don't know.
Don't know. So I don't want you to hear me say just because you're a parent,
right,
you know best. But there's this whole opposite thing that parents never know best. And I think kids today are losing something, not because they're bad kids so much, but because that narrative is so strong. Because nowadays, even parents are talking about, how much smarter their kids are than they are. How much, I like what somebody said one time. Said, when I was 3 years old, I could have never turned on a computer. Until somebody looked at this older person who said that. The grandparent said, when you were 3 years old, there wasn't a computer around.
Yeah.
You don't know whether you would have or not. My point is, in our culture today, I think this idea that parents know best is like completely out the window. And so, because parents are not as smart as their kids. Now, am I missing something? What I mean is, that's the narrative. Parents are not as smart as their kids.
Yeah, I think you also have to look at how that starts and how, not just how it's perpetuated, because it's really like it's interesting to see like generations, like dog previous generations. You know what I'm saying? Like the generation that raised a generation talk bad about how that generation doesn't know how to do anything. It's like, well, it was somebody's responsibility. Right. And so if parents were not shown the type of, like what y'all showed us, or taught us about, how to have confidence in yourself and to do things that you think you can't do, or even to do things because your parents know it's the right thing for you to do. If you weren't taught that, you're not going to teach your kids that. And so it's like this kind of endless cycle. But like, because you got to think about it, when stuff like that happens and you start to see those narratives, it didn't just all of a sudden, all right, boom, everybody born after the year 1990 doesn't know how to parent.
Right.
Like, I mean, it's that's not the case, right? So it's literally like it's been developing, and so it's kind of our responsibility to, to step in and be what your kid needs you to be.
That's right. And I'll tell you what generation I think started that narrative, switched that narrative, was my generation. My generation started that. The early, middle, and late baby boomers, they started that thing that parents don't know best. Parents are idiots. Now, we were not allowed to say it, okay? But our generation is the one that started it. That's not Groot, crazy talk, man, that ain't Groot. Now, you're right. There were some parents who fed into that narrative because they didn't act very wisely. They didn't rear their children. They didn't get to know their children. And so those are skills that can be taught. I don't want you to hear me saying the narrative's there and it's a general statement. It's true for everybody. It's not.
It's not.
Because there's many, many exceptions to but the narrative is, well, if a parent tries to do that, there were parents, for example, who would try to get their kids to play baseball, football, music, acting, whatever, who were doing it because they missed something, and so they were trying to live vicariously through their kids. If that's happening, that's dangerous. That's dangerous. If I was trying to, but see, I wasn't trying to see you all participate in music because I didn't feel like I'd been successful in music, or I didn't feel like I'd been successful in baseball. I've been successful in public speaking and stuff. I wasn't doing it because of that, so I could see my kids get to do something I always wanted to do. I mean, that's harmful. When it gets like that, that's really harmful. However, when you do it because you see it in the kids and you spend enough time talking to the kids, and then the kids are like, rolling their eyes, well, you can't tell me what to do. You're just trying to make me be something I'm not. And I hear that kind of talk when I work with families all over the place. I work in prisons a lot. Many of you know that. And one of the things I hear in there is with those parents, number one, the parents had no confidence in them. Number two, the kid had no confidence in the parent. You know what I'm saying? For whatever reason, sometimes it was justified for them not to have confidence in the parents because of the poor parenting skills. I just think that narrative is so strong today that a lot of times even counselors and other people who are talking to the kids are like, well, you need to be who you are, whoever you are, like, don't let anybody force you in. You be who you are. And I'm like, oh, come on. What 10-year-old knows who they are? Come on. I didn't know who I was when I was 10 for sure. I had some ideas, but I didn't know for sure. So that's my long-winded rant on where I think. And so the only way this works, guys, is not because Mom and I said certain things to you and because we knew best in this particular situation. What I think is cool, though, is you guys have become adults. I don't think that I always know best. I don't. That's why I would be more willing to sit back and say, and not say, oh yeah, you're going to do this. You don't hear me, since you're adults, you don't hear me saying, oh, you're going to do that. Now, when you were younger, I did. But I think when parents get to be adults, I don't think you go in. I mean, when children get to be adults, and I love what Eddie Hall Jr. told me the other day. He said, I have no children anymore. He said, I only have adults. I thought, I can say that. I only have adults. Now, I just love that kind of switch he did with me on the phone. And, you know, he's young enough to be my son. But I love that he's got children. He said, my oldest is, what did he say, 20-something? The youngest is 16. He said, I don't have children anymore. I've got adults. So I think when we say parents know best, it doesn't mean that for the rest of your life,
Right.
and for the rest of my life, I'm going to know better than you. But what it does mean, there better be stages in life where the parent is the wiser one. And if everybody acknowledges that, I think you have a healthier outcome.
So let's rewind the clock. Let's go back to the 1960s or 70s, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
You got a moment or an example of your parents doing that sort of thing for you?
Yeah, I really do. You mean like where they told me that I could do this or I could do that?
Yeah, you know, anything relating to
where you ended up later being like, oh yeah,
they knew what they were talking about.
They knew what they were doing.
Let's go music wise. So I grew up in a little church, and we used to lead music a cappella with no instruments, right? And so, but at an early age, my dad could tell that I could sing, and we know that my dad could sing. Your grandpa could sing. You didn't know as much about your mama singing as you knew your grandmother singing. She was one of the best altos around.
I remember a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, she was a great alto.
She used to sing in the house,
yeah.
in the kitchen all the time, right?
She had a rich alto voice. My sister Sylvia had a really good soprano voice, and I had a tenor voice. And from an early age, Dad recognized that we had that ability. And so when I was 13 years old, gentlemen, I was up front in front of a church without any music, without anything, pitching the song we were going to sing. Didn't have to, no piano to tap, no guitar to tap, nothing
No
like
pitch
that.
pipe.
No pitch pipe. My dad hardly ever used a pitch pipe, and or as Ralph Garth calls them, a whistle. Call them a pitch pipe, a whistle. But anyhow, here I was 13 years old, and I was up front leading music because my dad said I was ready. And I still can lead singing without a pitch pipe, without music, and spontaneously lead a church in song.
I'll say that's a good example, but it's not a great example because you didn't object to that, did you? I mean, that wasn't something
I don't think I did.
that you initially. Do you have one that you initially were like, oh, come on?
Kicking and screaming.
I will say this.
How about
I don't even know if I would be allowed to have done so.
how about when you surely when you first started getting jobs and working that when you weren't even an adult but you still had to pay rent.
Oh, age 15.
Yeah, come on.
Working 45 hours a week, being paid $1 a day, $1 an hour.
And 15 of the 45.
15 of the 45 went to
your
mom and
parents.
dad for rent. The other 15 went for clothing, for school for the next year. And the last 15 was mine to spend on my own. We painted in the hot Georgia sun for 40 hours a week with Mr. Sterling Bellow and my dad. I ended up on high ladders. I don't even like heights. I can remember being downtown Donaldsonville, Georgia, on the top of an awning with a ladder on the top of the awning and my dad at the bottom of it holding me while I went to the very top rung of the ladder and reached up and was trying to paint stuff and was painting stuff. So
There's no way he was down with giving up those $15.
Come on,
was I
child
down
labor.
with it. I'm gonna tell you
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
I didn't think I had a dadgum option.
Well, you didn't.
I didn't have an
we
option.
know
I mean,
that.
it wasn't like we were like there was no negotiation here. You know, like there was like okay, you know, and like I help pay the gas to take us to work. You know, I mean, like
So would it be fair to say then, I guess, as a parent, even though in the examples that we gave, you did make the final decision,
Yeah.
that you, as a parent, you allowed a little more rebuttal than he.
oh, absolutely. I never thought rebuttal was even possible
Yeah.
in growing up. That would be different in your experience. For example, I always said to you kids that you can be angry with me, but not disrespectful. But what I thought when I was a kid was
Right.
you can't even be
that
angry.
you
with your
couldn't
parent.
show a certain emotion.
and you
Yeah.
certainly weren't supposed to let them know it.
Right.
So
You know
I'll
what
say
I'm
I'll
saying?
say I like that. I think, and this is, I'm not trying to.
This is not official parenting advice.
Yeah,
is
no,
it?
no,
Yeah.
and I'm also not trying to be like, Grandpa, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
But I do feel that having that, because I remember things, and I try to do this with my kids too, with Isaac as he starts to reason more and stuff like that, where you can say like, I understand your point of view, and I get what you're saying, but you're not able to really see the full picture
That's
of why I'm
correct.
doing this.
That's good.
But instead of just being like, I don't want to hear a word out of your mouth, just
That's
do
right.
what I
That's
say.
right. That's right.
Which to me can kind of it really just kind of it can cause people to shut down
That's
more
correct.
so and not
It's not a healthy parenting technique.
yeah.
We're not allowed to share their emotions about something, especially if it's negative. But on the other hand, what does happen today is people are allowed to share their emotion and then decisions are made based. Because, see, what you teach a child, if you don't say, I'll hear your emotions, but that doesn't mean we're going to do what you say, is you're teaching, if you don't do that, then you're teaching them that emotions are your leaders. And what we say around here is emotions make terrible leaders. Feelings make terrible leaders, but they make great detectives. So you want to hear what somebody says. Somebody says that people who suffer from procrastination, I was one of those people, were people that grew up with this, is they thought they didn't have an option. And procrastination was their only way to respond in a passive way to say no. You know what I'm saying? Is I'm still sitting down inside, like the little boy said before car seats when his daddy sat him down. I'm still standing up inside. So failure to allow them to express their emotions causes them to squash it down, I think, and then later on it explodes. You don't pay any attention to what you don't even care what I think. I think also it's why parents can never make the shift to their children being adults. Yeah. Wow. Okay, so what did we just say? Parents know best, but they're not all wise. They don't always know everything. They need to learn from their children, learn how their children are responding to it, learn that. You'll be a wiser parent if you know how the child is visualizing you. As somebody said, how are you seeing me across the table? Right. Help me see what you see.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that y'all showed us too is that you can show your kids that one of the reasons you can show your kids that you're not always the wisest or always right is because you could show us who is. Yeah. And you guys, y'all pointed us to Jesus and say, hey, look, you got to, I think I remember having a conversation along the lines of, you think I'm like, if you got a problem, with something like this, take it to in prayer, ask Jesus what he thinks, about this disagreement or whatever it is. And that was just like the key, because I didn't have to watch my parents pretend that they had it right every time, all the time, and because that would so easily like seed a root of bitterness to experience my parents acting like they always had it together, and no matter what, because you guys weren't worried about that, because you knew you guys were imperfect, and you could point us to someone who was
Well,
perfect.
let's go back to the piano real quick. Had I not said, okay, guys, I get it. Because the reason that I said you don't have to do piano anymore is because of what you told me. What if I'd have been a parent who said, I don't care what y'all think, you're going to do this piano stuff? Here's what I think was the end result of it. I've always been with you kids, all four of you. One of the things I'm proudest about for you as adults is that I don't think you double clutch a lot of times on when you make a decision. I think you have confidence that you've thought through the process in a healthy way. How many young adults and then older adults even never gain that kind of confidence? And I think that parenting sometimes can really have an impact on later on for the children who become adults. Is I think if they learn that you can make a good decision as you're growing up, and we process that, that gives you more confidence in being able to make decisions in life as you go.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, great way to wrap this one up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, thank you guys so much for joining us again today. This has been another episode of Preacher in the Hat. For Eric, Steve, and Chris behind the curtain, I am Derek, and it's been nice having you with us. We'll see you next time.